Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a great honor for me and, of course, a great pleasure to welcome you to this press conference that is taking place in the framework of the Forum 2000 conference. Please welcome again Madam Suu Kyi to Prague. You are for the first time here. I don't think it's really necessary to present you fighter for freedom, former prisoner, now member of parliament, Nobel Prize winner, and also member of the International Advisory Board of the Forum 2000 Foundation. My name is Ivana Števková. I am a member of the Board of Directors of the Forum 2000 Foundation, and I have the honor to lead you through this press conference. Madam Suu Kyi, you have had a lot of meetings since Sunday evening when the Forum 2000 conference was opened. Before I give the floor to the press, maybe I would ask you to give some introductory remarks. Thank you.
Well, one of the main reasons why I came to this forum was to honor the memory of Václav Havel and to acknowledge what he did to help us through our struggle for democracy. We have not yet succeeded, and this is the second reason why I've come here, to make you understand that we have not yet made the transition to democracy, and the path is very difficult and very delicate. And I think very few people outside the country understand the intricacies of the situation. At the moment, we have to go step by step. And the next big step that we need to take is, at the same time, very simple, very complicated, extremely difficult. We need to amend the present constitution that we may truly become a democratic country. This constitution is anti-democratic. I won't go into the details unless one of you raises a question, because otherwise it might get too long. But that is another reason why I'm visiting Czech and Poland. I visited Poland and Hungary as well, countries that have made the transition to democracy. Difficult transitions, and some would say not totally completed. But I think much, much further ahead than we are in Burma. And we, of course, have to face much more complex problems because of our ethnic situation, because of the fact that our transition is not one which was negotiated between the democratic forces and the military regime. This is a transition which was tailored and implemented by the regime in the same way in which the constitution was drafted and adopted by the regime, not by representatives of the people. So our situation is a lot more difficult than yours was more than 20 years back. Although I'd like to say that we started out first 1 year in advance, but then we fell behind and you all sort of swept ahead. So we'll have to make up for lost time. And we need to be conscious of the urgency to amend the Constitution, because it is now under consideration in the legislature. Not amendment as such, but reassessment of the Constitution. But this is a great opportunity for us to point out why this Constitution must be amended if we want Burma to be a peaceful, united, democratic nation. The ethnic problem will not be solved by this present constitution, which does not meet the aspirations of the ethnic nationalities. The democracy problem will not be solved by this constitution. And amending this constitution itself is so utterly undemocratic that I think it would be difficult for anybody to speak up for it. For example, to start the amendment going, you need more than 75% of the votes of the members of the legislature. That is to say, more than 75%. But 25% of the members are nominated military men, nominated by the commander-in-chief, and he can change those people at any time he pleases. They're not nominated for the life of one parliament. So in effect, the commander-in-chief alone can decide whether or not the constitution can be amended. Now, is it democratic that in a country of an estimated 60 million, one man alone is in a position to decide whether the constitution can be changed in the way we would like it to be changed. So without going into all the different provisions of the constitution which make it undemocratic, the very provision for amendment makes it quite clear that we are not heading for a genuine democratic society. So we need this changed, and we need this change as soon as possible. The Committee for the Reassessment of the Constitution will be filing its report by the end of this year. So before the end of this year, we in Burma are working hard. When I say we, the National League for Democracy and our allied ethnic nationality parties are working hard to come out with a joint statement with regard to the need for amendments to the Constitution. And we would like to like all of you who would like to see our country a fully democratic society, to join your voices to ours to call for amendments to the Constitution by the end of this year. So that is the second reason why I have come here, to ask for your help. You have already helped us a great deal, but you might as well help us until we get to where we wish to get to. It's always, we have a saying in Burmese that if you're going to see somebody off right to the harbour. That is to say, if you're seeing somebody going off in a boat, just don't leave him halfway through. See him right up to where the boat leaves. So in the same way, I would like to say to you, since you have helped us so much along our struggle for democracy, I hope you will help us now again at this very important point when we are trying to make amendments to our Constitution. Thank you.
Madam Suu Kyi, thank you very much for your introduction. And now I would like to open the floor for questions. Please always wait for the microphone and please ask the questions in English. Thank you.
Jitka Tausik, Forum 2000. You have just attended the Forum 2000 conference, which is one of Václav Havel's legacies. Is it appropriate expression of it? What else marks Václav Havel's legacy, in your opinion?
I didn't attend all the discussions. I attended some of them. And, of course, this year's subject is very appropriate as far as we're concerned. It's about transition. And it's about the difficulties, challenges of transition. And I think one of Václav Havel's most important legacies is to teach us that in order to overcome challenges, we have to face them. We cannot pretend that they do not exist, which is why I've come to you with our problems. We know that there are problems, but we can't find ways of overcoming them. And I think this is what this forum is about finding solutions to problems in the way of societies in the process of transition.
Thank you very much. Next question. Please.
My name is Veronika Petrova. I'm from Czech television. I have two questions. What was the strongest moment that you have experienced here in Prague? And my second question, yesterday you have met with President Zeman. Now you are sort of calling for help. I'm wondering whether he had suggested any kind of help Czech Republic can be to Burma.
Well, my strongest impression was on the evening when I gave the keynote speech on President Václav Havel, that after I had made the speech and we had this little reception, there were so many people from so many different countries who were interested in what we have been trying to do and who were so supportive and so kindly. But this is something that happens again and again, and yet I never cease to be surprised by it. My first trip to Europe last June, in countries like France, England, Switzerland, I would meet people from different parts of the world, people from the Middle East, people from Africa, people from countries where I would not have thought that they would be interested in what was going on in Burma. But they were not only interested, but extremely understanding and sympathetic. Just ordinary people in the street. Some were tourists. They would recognize me and they would come up to say hello to me. Of course, at the reception, the people I met were not tourists. They were people who were interested in politics and in democratic transitions. But still, I was very moved and touched that not only did they care about what we had been trying to achieve, that they felt that they had been helped by what we had been trying to do. And with regard to the meeting with President Zeman, I've had meetings with the foreign minister too and members of the Senate, and all of them have been very sympathetic and they understand exactly what our problem is, because you have been through, and I'm perhaps still going through. I'm not quite sure whether that is a tactful thing to say or not, a difficult transition, but making progress all the time. And because of that, I feel that I have their sympathy. They understand how tricky it is to make a transition from an authoritarian society to a democratic way of life, to the democratic culture, if you like. And they also recognize the fact that we have more complex problems than you have here in the Czech Republic. Our ethnic nationalities, our communal problems, the fact that the Constitution still gives the military a very, very special position in the country, and it remains the biggest power in the land.
Thank you very much. Next question over there, please. Just wait for the microphone.
Hello, my name is Daniel Conrad. I'm from a business daily newspaper called Hospodářské noviny. Dosuji, you've mentioned ethnic clashes in Burma, and I wanted to ask you about the rights of women in Burma, because, for example, in June there was this proposal by nationalist monks that women Buddhists were not allowed to marry men of other faiths, and I wonder whether this plays into the clashes between the Buddhists and the Muslims in Burma.
Well, there was a very interesting panel discussion on Burma just now, this afternoon, and there were two young women from ethnic nationalities present there on the panel, and I was very struck and encouraged by the comments of one of them, that these communal clashes are, in fact, playing into the hands of those who would like to go in for divide and rule, who do not want real unity between the peoples of the country. And I would like to ask you to be aware of this. We need to build up trust and unity. And at this time, we need the help and understanding of the international community that we want our country to be united. There are many problems we have to overcome. And we should not play into the hands of those who would like to see division and disunity and lack of harmony. So please help us by pointing out how much more need there is for reconciliation and harmony than for condemnation and greater division.
Thank you very much. Next question over there.
BBC So I need to ask the question in English, right? Please. So my question is that now some prominent ethnic leaders are arguing that rewriting the constitution is better way than amend to the constitution, because when they look at the constitution, 80% of constitution had to rewrite to get into the right direction to the democratization and federal union, what they want. So you also said that very watertight constitution really had to amend. So what is your point of view on their ways? Because it seems that they will rewrite the constitution. Here is our draft. Let's referendum, and then go for the referendum, and then let's adopt or not. The kind of way they are thinking. Yes. So what is your point of view on the amendment? The
NLD has been having meetings with ethnic nationality parties over the last 3 weeks. And I think on next Saturday, this very question will be addressed. What shall we do? Shall we go in for amendments, or shall we go in for a total rewriting of the Constitution? And we have to look at the implications of both. As I mentioned earlier, amendments would require the support of the military. Without that, the constitution cannot be amended. But there is no provision for rewriting the whole constitution. So we have to study the implications of what would happen if we want the whole constitution to be rewritten. Would it mean a dissolution of the legislature? Would it mean an interim government? And if so, how is that to be brought about? So it's not a simple question of saying, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, yes, this is what we want. No, we can't do that. We have to study all the implications of the two possible paths that we can follow. And this is going to be done on Saturday, as I understand it. We had set an agenda of meetings every Saturday until the 28th, by which time I'll be back in Burma. And then we want to bring out a joint statement with a number of ethnic nationality parties with whom we've been discussing this as to, first of all, I think we are agreed that an amended constitution is essential if we are to be a truly democratic union acceptable to all our ethnic nationalities. But how to bring about these changes? All in one go, everything, or amend it and then another step? First of all, I think this is my private opinion, one of the most practical things we need to do is to find a more practical and flexible way of changing the constitution. As it is so entirely rigid. It's an almost all or nothing situation. So we need to change that. That is my personal opinion. But it's not my personal opinion that is going to prevail. We will come to a consensus on how we should address the issue.
Thank you very much for the answer. Please, next question.
Juan Brown, Journalists Without Borders. I had the luck that I went to your country many times, and I remember 8 years ago I used to walk by the house that you were in house arrest, and I used to say, she's going to be president. And I think you are going to be president soon. So I have a question now, please. You have two big neighbors, yes. Thailand and China.
I thought you were going to say India and China.
Well, let's start with China and
yes.
And Thailand, no? Because yes. Thailand, I think, has very much interest in the economic situation of your country, and China, obviously. What is your relationship, your personal relationship with them, and are you doing the same, let's say, PR that you are doing here in Europe or in the US with China and Thailand?
First of all, I have to be invited to a country. I don't go uninvited. I don't impose myself as an undesired guest. I'm in contact with the Chinese embassy in Rangoon, and we have good relations. And I always point out the fact that we always had good relations with our neighbors when we were working democracy. Perhaps not a perfect democracy, but a working democracy as we were when we became independent in 1948. At that time, we established very good relations with our ex-colonial government, the British, and, of course, with the United States, but also with India, with Thailand, with all our neighbors. And when the communist government came to power in China in the early 1950s, Burma was one of the very first countries to recognize it officially. That in no way diminished our friendship with the West, with India, with Thailand. So I am not worried about our ability to maintain good relations with our neighbors. It won't happen like that. We have to work at it. I don't think anything comes free. I don't think anything comes without hard work. But we are prepared to work hard. And because we have somebody was talking about democracy memories being important for democratic constitutions. And I could say that we have friendly memories that will help us to establish good, friendly relations with our neighbors. We had them in the past. There's no reason why we should not have them in the future, whatever the system of government we may adopt.
So thank you very much. Next question in the back over there, the gentleman. Please wait for the microphone.
Martin Donalding, I would like to ask, you said recently that one of the biggest advantages of Burma today is that it can learn from mistakes of others. And I would like to ask specifically about your perception of transformational process in Czech Republic. In which ways do you think we can serve as a good model for Burma, and which of our mistakes would you like to avoid?
I think perseverance is a very good example for us. You have persevered. And I think the very fact that you have had troubles is a lesson for us, because that makes us understand that the process of transition is very seldom trouble-free. And that helps us to cope with our own troubles. If your transition experience had been totally smooth and totally without fault, I think it would have made us feel rather worried. How is it that other countries can affect such a smooth and effortless transition? And why are we finding it so difficult? And I think it might have made us start suffering from an inferiority complex. But as it is, what you make us feel is, yes, there are problems, but you got over some, they are still remaining, you're going to get over them, I do believe in that. And that in itself is a great inspiration for us. And the fact that you remain interested in us and in other countries like us. Maybe you have not made the transition as completely as some of you might wish, but even in spite of that, you still feel you have something to give to others. And I think that's an inspiration. So it makes me feel that we too, in our own way, will have something to give to the world sooner, I hope, rather than later.
Yes, I think we still have some way to go. Please, this gentleman over here. Next question.
Thank you. Andrej Matišek, Slovak Daily Pravda. So if I may, it will be kind of follow-up of the question about the neighbors countries, but I will bring to the mix also India and maybe the US and maybe the Europe, because this transition.
And not that the US is a neighbor.
It's not a neighbor, but it's US is everywhere. But I just want to ask you because with the transition there is a inevitable also the process that and this is Burma is a rich resources country. There is a kind of struggle of foreign companies, foreign states. So how to, with China, India, also US. So how to use it? Is it possible to use it somehow for a good of Burma, that also the big countries are interested in your economy, and inevitably there are also negative sides of it. So how to deflect it? And if I may, second one, General Tan Shui disliked you so much that the people were afraid to even say your name in his presence. At least I was sad. Any hard feelings towards him? Thank you. And please next time visit also Slovakia when you are in Central Europe. Thank you.
The first question about natural resources. Everybody knows that natural resources can be a curse or a blessing. And how do we make sure that it's not a curse? What we need more than anything else is accountability and transparency. All the contracts that are drawn up should be transparent, and those who draw them up should be accountable, whether it's company to company or government to government or government to company. A lot of our problems today spring from the fact that certain contracts were drawn up between the government or government-supported companies, because, of course, under the previous regime, no company without the support of the government could have been in a position to enter into a contract with a foreign company. None of these were transparent. So we didn't know what was in those contracts. And suddenly, facts began to emerge, and people were unable to accept them. Problems arose. No transparency, no accountability. That was the main reason why our resources became such a curse. The income from all these resources went to the government. We don't know what the government used it for. We did not have the right to know. We still don't know. There are still programs and projects under contract in our country. For example, such as the dams on the Irrawaddy, of which we don't know the details. We, the people, do not know what we have been contracted out for, if you like. So if we want to make sure, of course this is not a perfect world, but in an imperfect world, in order to make sure, as far as possible, that our resources are a blessing rather than a curse, there must be transparency and accountability so that we know what we are letting ourselves in for. And we can protest, And we can ask that the right standards be maintained. And, General Tan Shui. Well, I don't know whether he didn't like to hear my name or not. That's what people said. But I certainly heard his name a lot. And I'm sharing it now. And no, I don't have any hard feelings towards him or anybody else, because I look at it this way. I chose to stand up for democracy. I chose to stand up for the kind of political change that I thought was good for our country. And obviously he thought differently. And because he thought differently, perhaps he didn't look upon me as an ally. And I don't think I could make any complaints about that.
And I took the note about Slovakia because, the Forum 2000 conference is spreading out every year. So next year maybe we'll also go to Slovakia. So next we have some 10 minutes left. So next question, please.
Hello, my name is Lucia Kavanova. I'm from the Respect magazine. I just came back from Burma. It was the second time I visited it this year. And I was very much surprised to see the rise of the tension. When I asked people about the Muslim community, it was very much visible, not only the stickers in the streets, but also just talking to ordinary people. I was really struck by it. So I was just wondering, what is the NLD, or what are you doing to ease up this tension? Is it even possible? And the second question would be, if I may, you're a symbol of hope for many people, not only in Burma, from talking to people there, but also here. Often, just talking to people here, we hear a lot of negativity. I was just wondering, what is the best news you have heard personally lately? Something that made you happy, some good news that you heard, if you could give us some inspiration.
All
Thank
right.
you.
The first question, tensions can always be made to come down. But we need everybody to understand. I was mentioning that just now. There's a lot of fear. Tension is caused by fear. There is mutual fear between the communities. And we've got to bring down this fear. We've got to lessen the fear. And I keep emphasizing rule of law. And people do not seem to understand why rule of law is necessary. Without rule of law, our people can't feel secure. And I try to put it very simply. If somebody is afraid of being attacked by people from another community, you can't expect them to sit down and talk to one another and try to work out their problems. So I'm a very practical person. So I want to start with providing our people with enough security so that they can look at the situation objectively and not through the lenses of fear. I think fear and hatred are very, very closely linked together. You always end up by hating people that you fear, hating things or people that you fear. So if you want to bring down the tensions which come out of fear and hatred, we've got to give our people a sense of security first. And that means that our people must all feel that they have equal access to justice. They will be protected from violence, from criminal activities, from injustice. That is why I keep emphasizing that the government must do more about rule of law. They don't even, as somebody mentioned at the panel meeting this afternoon, they don't even obey what's in their own constitution. So where's rule of law in our country? All right, now you want me to say something positive. Now, this matter was a big one, but what I want to tell you, which makes me happy and which is positive, may seem like a very small thing, but it makes me very happy, so I want to talk about it. We started the first mobile library in our country a couple of months ago in my constituency. It had always been my dream that I would start mobile libraries in Burma, because we can't afford to build libraries in all villages and towns. We are not a rich country. But our people, especially our young people, are greatly in need of intellectual food. And the way I thought I would get it out to them as cheaply and as quickly as possible would be through a mobile library. And so I said that I would set up a mobile library. And I think some of my friends were a little bit skeptical because this had never been done before in my country. But the moment this mobile library was launched, it was the most incredible success. Our books were lent out in a matter of hours, and we're getting more and more, and we're getting to many villages in my constituency, not all of them, partly because we need a smaller bus to go down the smaller roads. But it's been a tremendous success. And we have discovered that our children love reading. It's not that they don't want to read, it's that they don't have any books to read. Provide them with books and they read them. They really devour the books. And not just the children, grown-ups as well, because adults are also allowed to borrow books, although we do make a point of having more children's books because we want it to be primarily for the children. And we're going to use this as a way of making our young people in the villages digitally literate. That's to say, we'll carry a little computer in the mobile library, and we will give lessons, computer lessons, basic ones. So this is a very small success story. I have bigger success stories in my constituency, but this is what appeals to my heart. It makes me very happy because it's about the future. We are building the foundation for something that I hope will spread all over the country. So if you would like to contribute towards our mobile library, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. So we have space for the last question. Gentleman over there.
Hello. Thanks for those happy words at the end. Nevertheless, in Europe, we are in a difficult times as far as democracy is concerned because it's highly questioned. We have here referendums who are not respected. For instance, in France and Netherlands, they rejected the constitution. At the end, it went through. In Ireland, happened the same. Now we have to, this so-called democracy, have to qualify it as direct democracy because it's a clear-cut term in Europe, and it's seriously undermined. So, what is as a political person, what's your recommendation to keep democracy more true to itself?
I think basically you have to respect the people. This may sound like something very simple, but I wonder whether in the countries that you're talking about, the politicians really respect the people. When I say respect the people, meaning to say valuing them and understanding how important they are. When we contested the by-elections last year, there were many people who said that our people were not ready for democracy. They would not understand the importance of elections and that the turnout would be poor. But it was not like that at all. I believed that they would be capable of understanding, provided we treated them as people who could understand. And we campaigned on the basis of everybody exercising his or her democratic rights. And one of the ways in which I explained it was very simple but very effective. I said, this is the one day when you will be the equal of the president. Because he has one vote, you have one vote. So use it. And you are as valuable as he is. They understood that. And the other instance, the example I would like to give of what I mean by respecting the people, is that in Burma these days, we have lots of problems about land being confiscated by the authorities or by companies and not enough compensation given and problems arising. Now, in my constituency, I wanted to, we concentrated on constructing new roads. And there was one road that I wanted to widen so that there could be traffic throughout the year, even during the rains, from the city of Rangoon out to my township. And for that, we would be required to take land away from farmers because the fields at either side of the road were owned by small farmers. And so I said I would like to meet some of the owners. When I went down to the constituency, I couldn't arrange to meet all of them, but I met two of them. And I explained to them the problem. I said, we want to widen this road so that it can be more useful for you. It will be better for trade. It will be better for our constituency. But it means that we have to take 8 feet of land because we want to widen it by 8 feet of your land. But we will only do it with your agreement and whatever compensation you ask for. We'll agree on a compensation. We'll work out one that you think is appropriate. And I said, you don't sign your agreement until you understand exactly what it is we want and exactly what it is you have to give. But if you agree, then only you sign. If you don't agree, we discuss this until we can come to an agreement. And I was very encouraged because these two farmers who were not particularly well educated said, no, we don't want compensation. We know that this road will be for our good, and thank you for asking us. That is all they wanted. They liked the fact that they mattered, that it was their decision, and that we would respect their decision. And it was done just like that. So I think you have to respect the people. Really respect them, not pretend to respect them. Understand that they count, and without their cooperation, you can't get it done. But I think if the political forces or the government are at odds with the people, if the people feel they're either been used or, in fact, they are facing an antagonist, then I think it would be very difficult to get the kind of results that we hope for. Mind you, agreements don't always come that easily. But I think you can start on the assumption that the people are intelligent and they care for the community as much as politicians do, and that they expect to be treated like human beings born with a complete quota of dignity. So this is one way of going about it. It won't provide all the answers, but it sometimes works. It has worked for us. And I hope that the basic principle of respecting the people will work in general.
So, Madam Suu Kyi, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. I wish you, on behalf of the Forum 2000 Foundation, that the way to your full democracy will be as short as possible with a less amount of obstacles, and do well learn from our mistakes that we made. Thank you very much again, and I wish you a nice afternoon.
Thank you.